So then, Granny Nelson. Blimey. Aldershot in the county of Southampton. Oh, God, I'm not from Southampton, am I? OK, so, name and surname of father, Michael Nelson. Name, surname and mother, Annie Nelson, formerly O'Keefe. Occupation of father, driver, army services. So she was born in Southampton. Oh, God. I'll be honest, I'll be a little bit disappointed if everybody now turns out to be English.
Chris now knows the names of Hannah's parents. Michael Nelson, who was a driver in the British Army, and Annie O'Keefe. But the information doesn't help Chris solve the mystery of why Hannah was living with her grandmother, Margaret O'Keefe, by the age of 3.
From this birth certificate to 3 years later, my grandmother's lost her parents and is now living in Ireland, in Dublin. I want to know how that happened. What happened to her mum and dad? Where they were from? Was he English? Was he Irish? And then find out what happened to them. They obviously died. Well, seemingly they died. This is going to be another depressing day, isn't it? It's going to be death all day today.
Good morning, Agent Ireland.
Aideen?
Yes?
It's Chris Moyles.
No, it is really.
Yes, it
How
is.
are you getting on?
Now Chris has the names of his great-grandparents. He's contacting the Irish National Archives to see if they can find any documents that might reveal their fate.
I'll see what I can do for you, Chris, and we'll be in touch.
All right, thank you very much.
To discover whether Hannah's father, Michael Nelson, was English or Irish, Chris is meeting military historian La Joy. La has a copy of Michael's British Army service record.
He was in the Army Service Corps, which is nowadays would be called the logistics sections.
Right.
It also just says here that he previously had served in the Royal Dublin Fusiliers.
Oh, brilliant.
In the 5th Battalion. So before he joined up, he must have had some experience.
So he was born in Ireland?
More than likely, yeah.
That's good, I'm pleased about that.
Michael Nelson's military service record also gives details of his wife and children.
Mary, the eldest child, Mary Margaret, was born in Dublin. Yeah. And the other two were then born in Aldershot in 1905 and 1906.
OK, so they were only born there because he was serving there?
He was serving there, yeah.
So I got the birth certificate today from my grandmother, and it said that she was born in Aldershot. So now this is good, because if it wasn't for him in the army, then she'd have been born in Dublin.
Should have been born in Dublin.
So it's all Irish?
It's all Irish.
All right, there you go. So obviously Hannah's dad, all this information is great, but Hannah's mum, I don't know much about it. There's a big mystery surrounding her and why she sent her daughters back to Dublin, especially to such a horrible place.
Yes.
But then maybe they had no choice.
So, in 1911, when 3-year-old Hannah Nelson was living with her grandmother, her Irish father, Michael Nelson, was in the British Army in Aldershot. But the record gives no clue to the whereabouts of Hannah's mother, Annie. A new document that has been uncovered at the Irish Archives may hold the answer.
I've managed to find something for you on your great-grandmother, Annie Nelson. I hope it's not too distressing. Oh, great. P.S. SDU on the front cover refers to the South Dublin Union Workhouse. Indoor Relief Register. Name of inmate. Annie Nelson, from, that looks like Cook Street, age 33, South Dublin Union Workhouse.
The document, dated 1913, shows that when Hannah was 5, her mother, Annie, was admitted to the workhouse. For more than 200 years before the advent of the welfare state, the South Dublin Union Workhouse was the place of last resort for the destitute poor of the southern half of the city. But with an extended family to support her in Cook Street, The reason why Annie Nelson was admitted is unclear.
I'm going to need some help because I can't read any of this writing. I just don't understand what some of these things mean, because it says observation on condition of inmate when admitted, and there's a symbol which is quite common, so I just need someone to translate that and then wrap that up. It's another gloomy day.
Most of the South Dublin workhouse has now been demolished to make way for St James's Hospital. Chris has come to the hospital to meet Dr. Catherine Cox. Catherine can shed some light on Annie Nelson's time in the workhouse.
It's to do with your great-grandmother.
Is she in there?
No, she's not in there. We hope not, anyway.
Well, I hope not, yeah.
Underneath the modern hospital building is a remnant of the original workhouse.
So this is part of the original building that has remained. But it just gives you an idea, an impression of the conditions, the harsh environment in which people survived.
So I've got the ledger, the register.
Mm-hmm. This is a record of the people who were brought in.
Yeah. Annie Nelson.
Okay.
Who lived at Cook Street.
Okay.
She's 33.
She's 33.
And then this is the interesting thing for me, which is observations on condition of the inmate when they were admitted. And it's just like a little squiggle which seems to appear a lot.
Yeah, that's the shorthand for pulmonary.
Which is what? What is
Well, it means that she has a condition of her lungs, and in this time period, what we're probably talking about is TB.
Now, that would be dangerous then for her to be with her children and stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, you can see there how many admissions are associated with pulmonary.
And TB was, if you got TB, what was that terminal?
It was probably terminal, yes.
Right.
The workhouse infirmary was one of the few places in Dublin that would take in the poor, suffering like Annie from such an infectious disease. At the turn of the 20th century, tuberculosis was rampant in Ireland. The mortality rate was 50% higher than in the rest of the UK. The Dublin slums were intensive breeding grounds for TB, and Cook Street was noted as one of the worst in the city. In such overcrowded conditions, Annie was in grave danger of infecting her children.
So this could be when the period when it's bad, and she
Right.
The best advice is to separate herself from the family.
But this says that she died.
No, she's not dead yet. This is just discharged.
All right.
So she's actually discharged.
Oh, so then what? So what? She got better?
Well, they may have just taken her out. The family may have taken her out. You don't know. She may have been transferred to a different institution, to a different facility.
Oh, okay.
So you don't quite know.
So where did she go?
Well, that's our next question.
Annie Nelson was discharged from the workhouse on the 15th of March 1914.
So with Michael Nelson in Aldershot, obviously his wife would have been with him in Aldershot, but she was too ill to look after Hannah, so it would make sense that they would ship Hannah over to her grandmother's where she could be looked after, which is why she ended up back in Dublin.
To discover the ultimate fate of his great-grandmother, Annie Nelson, Chris has ordered up her death certificate.
Deaths in Dublin. So this is Annie Nelson. She died 33. What's that? Obviously, well, this is her dying of TB. The place of death is something hospital, which isn't the infirmary where she was. So they must have put her in a proper hospital where she obviously then died at 33 years old. That's sad. What a horrible way to die. What a young, ridiculous age to die. Granny survived and got out. So good on her. Bless her.
Chris's grandmother, Hannah Nelson, was just 6 years old when her mother died 2 months after leaving the workhouse. Hannah survived the poverty and disease of the Dublin slums and went on to live until she was 70. She died when Chris was 4 years old.
As sad as this is, and horrible and stuff, it's I think it's quite positive that my granny, then she got way out of that. That's a she's in a semi-detached house in Leeds with 2 grandkids from her daughter. So from TB and all this horrible stuff to that, well, she's smiling. And I think as long as we keep it up and we don't go back to this, then there might be some hope for this family.